I'm excited to have Emily from Rebel Up here, and today she's going to give.
Emily! Yeah!
Okay. Actually, before we go to the next slide, and we see an overview of what Rebel is. How many people here have heard of Rebel? I'm curious. Okay, so hopefully this will help build some more awareness.
10 people.
Okay, so I think if I click the next one, we'll get the video overview. Do I have to press click again? Technology.
Hi, I'm Emily, the founder and CEO of Rebel, and today we are going behind the scenes to see where the magic happens at one of our largest returns recommerce facilities. Let's go. At Rebel, we offer the largest assortment of overstock and open box products. With thousands of new deals dropping every single day, you can score up to 70% off on all the brands that you know and love. Now that's major. Check this out. All of these are our receiving bays, and every week we are processing tens of thousands of unique SKUs. And you guessed it, all of this is powered by our proprietary technology.
This facility is over 300,000 square feet, and we have an entire area where our technology is dedicated to quality checking every single product. And get this, so many returns are actually in perfect condition. Instead of heading to a landfill, we give them a new life, shipping them directly to your doorstep at an unbeatable price.
And that's why we're really proud to be the only certified B Corporation in the returns recommerce industry. We're keeping millions of pounds out of landfills every single year. Talk about impact.
Shop smarter.
Shop Rebel.
Can I get her? Okay. I don't know if I have any more questions now.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, so let's start at the beginning. What sparked the idea for Rebel? Well,
Yeah, so I had been working in retail my entire career, specifically off-price retail. So I worked for Saks Off Fifth. I worked for the TJX companies, which is the largest off-price retailer in Canada. It's Winners and Marshalls, HomeSense. And when I got pregnant with my son, I have two kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. When I got pregnant with my son, I started digging into the baby gear industry, specifically where are the deals. I love a good deal. Everybody loves a deal. And I couldn't figure out why there were no deals on never used items. And then I started digging into the returns industry, and I realized that all returns in the baby gear space were being sent directly to landfill. So what that means is if you bought a car seat, if you bought a stroller, anything that you bought, if you returned it, it wasn't going back on the shelves, even if it was brand new, never used, the box was just open. So that was the start of how Rebel became. So we started in baby gear, and then we've expanded into other verticals of returns over the years.
So I just got to ask, what % of baby stuff were returned, when you looked into this?
So returns are, across the board, returns are about $1 trillion problem. It's about 17 to 20% of a full price retailer's sales. So it's a cost of doing business. And so, yeah, if you sell $100, you're gonna get, $20 back in returned inventory. When you think about mass retailers that are doing billions of dollars of sales every single year, they're about 17 to 20% is coming back as a return.
So you have the idea for Rebel. Mm-hmm. You go to start it. What influenced how you're gonna lead how you're gonna lead the business, how you're gonna build a brand? So I imagine this was your first startup. So how do you think about that?
It was actually extraordinarily challenging. So I quit my job it was right after lockdown, so of the first wave of the pandemic. And I was also quite pregnant with my second child. So I guess I just didn't think about it. It was just let's go. But it was challenging because I had to really educate investors as well as the retailers that there was a problem to be solved because things were going in the garbage. No one was talking about it or willing to talk about it. So I knew that returns were going into the garbage, but this category didn't exist. So it was hard to get people to understand what I was trying to build, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense because it sounds like it was business as usual. So that how do you help them understand they had a problem?
So Well, we didn't. So at a certain point, I was like, oh my God, like, we don't have any clients. Like, we have this technology that we built and like, no one's wanting to use it because no one will admit that they're throwing their stuff out. But we kind of had, I feel like every stage of we had some brands. So we were doing some revenue. But we had a big breakthrough. There was a very large mass retailer in the United States that was on the precipice of going bankrupt. And I feel like maybe they just didn't care anymore. And so they were like, whatever, we're going to stop lying about throwing our returns in the garbage. We actually want as much revenue as humanly possible. So they called us and they said, like, remember when we said there was like no returns going in the garbage? Like, we actually like do have returns for you to process and can you come help us? And so that was like a big breakthrough for us because we got down to this facility in the United States, the warehouse, and it was like trucks upon trucks upon trucks upon trucks of returns that were normally going to the garbage that were now showing up. And so from there, we were able to be like, okay, our technology like doesn't even work at this size of scale. Like we weren't anticipating this. And the technology worked. And then we were able to build a business case. And then we were able to go back to the retailers that had told us there's not a problem here and be like, no, like, let's quit it with this BS. Like, let's actually make a solution. Like, let's work together to stop doing this.
So you had a supply. You have to create the demand, and you have to create a brand. Because I imagine retailers are known for a brand. How did you know how to build a brand? How do you think about building your brand?
I don't know how I built a brand. No, like, so I had a lot of it was just, I was just figuring it out as I went until we were able to hire a team. But I knew that we needed to be able to offer radical value every single day of the week. And we needed to have amazing customer service, and we needed to be able to meet customers where they were. And so this kind of idea of the way that the brand was built is like how you do anything is how you need to do everything. Like you need to put as much care and attention into every single detail, even if it's not your interest. Like customer care, how you respond to the customer, how you ship the order, how you tape the box. Like do it with perfection along the way, and then the brand kind of builds itself.
So then how do you build a team and company culture to embrace this? Because it sounds like pretty exacting standards, a pretty, a mission. So how do you get the right team and build that culture?
I mean, we have an amazing team. We've got 50 full-time employees, and then our contract labor is like another 100. So we have just under 200 employees right now. And I think a lot of it has been making sure that everybody that's coming in truly understands how the company was built and how it started. And I think that that's something that, we're figuring that out as we continue to grow. But that's really important. Like it started in the basement. And I think you see that video and like reminding people of, like, I call them the dark days, but like the dark days of like where you're just like, I don't know if this is going to work, but everybody needs to have that same passion around you. And I would say there's like a flip. At the beginning, we were lucky with whoever would want to join the company. And now there's like a lineup of people that our mission aligns with what they want to do in their career. And so there's been a flip of like the type of talent that we have at the company.
So do you find the talent that's looking for you are customers first? Like how are they aware of you and how are they mission aligned? How do they find you?
Through some of our investors, through every time we post a job. There aren't that many startups that have secured the level of funding that we have, that if you truly want to join like a legit tech startup in Canada, like there's kind of a short list of companies that are growing, triple digits every year.
Well, triple digits every year, that's pretty impressive. And you started with, baby.
Yep.
And you're much more now. So how did that evolution come? What was the key points where you said, okay, we have to change or we can do more? Tell me how you got from, like you said, the basement to, what was that, 300,000 square foot warehouse?
Yeah, and that's one of our warehouses. So
how many do you have?
So we have this one. We've got Toronto. That's in Charlotte, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're opening on the West Coast next year, a similar version to that. And then we've got one in Toronto.
So you went from the basement to, let's call it 1 million square feet,
Yeah.
roughly. So tell us about what the inflection points were and how they happened.
Yeah. So I think, so it's an interesting thing because we've got customers, but then we also have clients. So we're the solution for these mass retailers and global iconic brands. We have 2,500 partners right now. We are the contract with Target, Costco, Amazon. So we've got these big enterprise contracts. So I think it was if we did a good job. Like, I think the team is very, very strong at executing, and I think that's really, really critical. It takes you so long to get these contracts and to gain the trust of the partners that are willing to give you a shot, that like you can't not execute. And if you execute well, then they want to continue growing with you. So in our case, so we were in baby, we grew that to a certain size across many different partners. And then it was one of our major retailers came to us and was like, look, we love the net new revenue that we're making from baby, and returns are a problem across the retail industry. It's not just this vertical. We've got issues in home and recreation and CPG and like you name it. And you guys are the only ones that have built the technology at scale to be able to handle returns at this volume. Like, will you help us with these other verticals? So it was kind of a mix of our partners were asking us, can you expand your technology into these other verticals? And then we asked our customers, like, you trusted us with buying your open box baby gear. What else would you like to buy and save on? And then they gave us a list, and then we kind of match up, they want help here. Our customers are interested in that. What makes sense for the roadmap of expansion?
So has it always been easy? No setbacks along the way?
No.
So how did
Every day there's like 17 new setbacks.
So how did you learn to deal with setbacks?
For me, it was just like you just have to let them go. You need to take the glimmer of learning or not that you can learn from them, and you need to just move forward, because if you hold on to them, then you get stuck. And so it's like you just gotta like be done with it and move on. And I think that that's been something that the whole team is able to do, and that's the only way. Like I don't think it ever gets easier. It's different size, different problems, but it is very rewarding. But no, it's every day is like fires everywhere.
So every day.
Every day.
And so then how do you actually, so you let stuff go, but what other pressure, is there any rituals or anything else you have to deal with it? Or how do you grow yourself to grow with the company?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I work on every day, especially as we bring in new talent. I mean, that's one of the hardest things as a founder, is that when you're growing really quickly, you sometimes outgrow talent quickly. And it's sad because people come and join the team and they get you to a certain point, but maybe the skill set that's needed is no longer what they have to offer. And so as you start bringing in new talent around you, like, I need to step up as a leader, right? Like, we've got some of the smartest people on the leadership team and senior director level and VP level at the company now that, like, the way I was 5 years ago in the basement isn't going to cut it. So, you're constantly, finding great mentors, constantly putting yourself in circles with other founders that you admire, investors that you admire, and picking your investors really wisely.
So I'm going to go a bit off schedule. How do you pick your How do you pick your investors wisely? Because I think most founders are just happy to get any investor.
No, I was like a full psycho. So I view it as like a marriage. Like, you're selling a bit of your company, and like these are like your partners, and you need to do as much diligence on them as they do on you. And I found that like we're so lucky with the investors that we have. But I literally created a spreadsheet and dove real deep on a lot of them. And I have an email that I sent to my husband, when it was in the basement. He works for the company as well. And I was like, one day we're going to raise a Series A, and it's going to be one of these 3 funds. And I have that email still, and it was one of those funds. I didn't know any of them then, but it was one of those funds that led our A. And I did a similar type thing with our Series B. And it was like, there's very specific things that I'm looking for to be my partner.
One quick follow-up question. After the round closed, did you tell those investors that you had preordained and that you had them in your mind when you started the company?
There's one investor that I told that to, but no, I'll wait for like one day down the road. I'll tell them
when you're
that.
ringing the bell on the IPO
Exactly.
day at dinner after that.
I'll show the email.
Yeah. What's one lesson you wish you had learned earlier in the founder's journey?
So one of the lessons that I wish that I'd learned was to not trust everybody at the get-go. And I don't know if that's like the right way to say it, but I think that when like sometimes it's good to be naive. Like I actually think, like I didn't read a lot of these, good to great, like the lean startup, because it gave me anxiety. I was like, this is like not for me. So I wanted to be a little bit naive of like, what does raising capital, what is it like? Like I kind of just went through it and figured it out along the way. And I think with business, like the actual relationships that you're building, if somebody's like, for a little bit of equity in your company, I'll help you do X, Y, Z. Like, don't sign those documents unless you know that those people, like part of the legal document says what they need to deliver. Like, it's hard, like don't trust everybody, which maybe isn't a good, like that's kind of negative, but.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting there. You said don't trust everyone, but also, do you think you can have more trust if you explicitly say what the deliverables are?
I think so, because then it's like you don't get the equity unless you do X, Y, Z, or you don't get the, the payment as a consultant, like if you're not doing the job. I think that sometimes entrepreneurs can get taken advantage of.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think being a founder, you have to be think the opposite of everything. You have to be optimist but cynical. So
yes.
It really resonates with me what you're saying there. And if you could go back to day one, what would you do differently? Anything else other than be a bit less trustworthy? I don't know if that's the right word, but.
No, I think that would be the only thing. And then I think the things that I would continue doing is like the amount of work. Like I think that you don't realize how much work it's going to be when you start a company. And if you love it and you truly are passionate about it, then it doesn't feel like work, but your vision isn't enough. Like just having a great vision isn't enough. Like it has to be coupled with like the hardest work that you've ever even thought was fathomable.
And so looking forward now, you've got a company, you said you raised a Series B, you've got 1 million square feet, you're beyond kids, well beyond it. What does future success look like? If we're sitting here in 5 years, what's made a journey worthwhile?
I think that if we can change, I already feel like we've made huge impact on the retail industry, and we've changed the way in which they've handled like a lost cause, I guess, was how they viewed returns. I think that if we can create a brand that stands the test of time and a solution that becomes the household name for returns, then that would be like what success looks like, just like continuing to grow and to make an impact in the space that we're in.
I love it. One more question before I open it to the audience. What do you think Canadian founders could be doing more of? Like, because you mentioned, hey, not many Canadian companies have raised so much or growing this fast. Is there anything you've observed dealing with the ecosystem that you give a piece of advice Canadians could do differently?
I think that it's important for you, like sometimes you can find really great companies as mentors or things to look at in the US. Like I think Canada's amazing. It's great, but it's small, right? And so depending on the industry that you're in, for us it's retail. Like the retail industry in Canada is really small, and versus in the United States it's just so big. And so I think like to make sure that you don't like stunt your growth because you're not looking outside of Canada as well.
So I lied, I'm going to ask one follow-up question to that. You talked about finding advisors in the States. How do you go about identifying them and recruiting them?
So I knew that for our business, because it was retail, that the majority of our business most likely would end up being in the United States. There aren't that many. Our business works because we need mass volumes of returns, and there aren't that many retailers in Canada that have that. And so through like aggressively networking with the funds that I respected, or through other founders of businesses. Like I would cold call CEOs of like major businesses and just be like, hi, like I've started this business and it's like returns and like they throw them in the garbage and they were probably like, what? But some would answer. And then they would be, and then once they understood the business, they would be like, wow, like I'm kind of into that. And then I'd meet them for coffee and then they would introduce me to so-and-so. And like, I think just like that, like don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
I love that. Can I get a round of applause? Now, questions from the audience, please.
Hey, Emily. That's really heartbreaking hearing you talk about how like not everyone can scale with you in the company. And I feel like a lot of CEOs at Series A companies talk about that very often. Mm-hmm. Do you have a methodology for training existing people, or do you just go to those investors and advisors and ask them like, what do I do next? Yeah. Like how much do you like invest in the existing people to scale with you? Mm-hmm. Versus turning everyone over? Yeah, so we always try to do that. But I think I'm more talking about the leadership team less than below the leadership team. I think like at a startup that's venture backed, that's growing aggressively, you almost need to treat when you hire leaders, like this is almost like a tour of duty. Like your skill set is, and they'll understand that. Like someone's a CMO or a CTO, like their skill set might be like all the companies that they can get you from 20 million to 30 million or 20 million to 100 million. But after that 100, it's a different skill set. And some might be able to grow and that would be amazing. But others may not be able to do that. And that has to be okay too, because you won't get to where you need to go. And it ends up being like exhausting on like it ends up being exhausting. Like you need to be able to trust that your team is able to execute where you're at.
I'm going to just jump in here with an investor hat. The other thing I've seen a lot is there's a certain set of executives that like a certain stage.
Totally.
So it's not only skill set, there's a like, right? So there's some people that come in when it's really messy, and there's some people that are like, okay, I want a well-oiled machine, and I'm executing against this. So I think it's a skill set and a mindset. And as you scale, I see that often with executive teams. There's people right executive for the right time.
Exactly.
Hello, thank you, Emily, for this business confession, I would call it. Like you. And sorry if we brought you the black days and reminding of them. My question is, because I believe outreach is the hardest thing to do, and especially when you just have an idea and maybe you trust only yourself and what you believe on. What was kind of the day-to-day plan to outreach the people and the companies that could give you the returns?
Yeah, so we started with brands. So we knew that our business needed retailer returns, but we started by educating and influencing the actual brands. And if they could fall in love with our solution, then we knew that they would then help us influence the retailers. So for example, like in baby gear, Newell Brands owns Graco. They're one of the largest baby gear companies. So once we knew that we got Newell Brands on board for our solution, then they were the references to help us get Target and Nordstrom and like all of these other retailers, because they didn't want their returns to go into the garbage. And they wanted their returns to end up in families across North America at a fraction of the price. So that was our approach. It took a lot of rejection from the retailers to be like, okay, like we're running into a brick wall. If we can't get the retailers, who can we get that then we can go back to the retailers? So there was a little bit of that. And then from an investor standpoint, like I literally created a spreadsheet and I did deep dive researches into like 119 funds. And I literally Googled brands that I respected that had some sort of similarity with the business that I was building, who funded them at the seed stage, at the A stage, at the B stage. I made lists. Like I started forcing them to meet with me. In the first round when I was extremely pregnant, I pitched 119 times and got 118 rejections. Like it's nuts what you have to do. But then once you cross that threshold and then you start executing, like we didn't try to raise our A. People wanted to just give us money, and then we closed our A, and we didn't we didn't try to raise our B. Funds were calling us because we were executing. But that first piece was the hard part, getting over that first hump.
Phoenix?
Hello. I find everything that you've talked about very like inspiring, and now you're able to change something that was looked as waste to converting into something that was provided wealth. I'm curious how you were able to create a prototype, or how you're able to like build something for a large scale without having worked, like without actually having the solution tested for large scale.
So can I rephrase the question? Is how did you build a product that could scale without having access to the actual product, I think, or with the actual customers?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the hard part. So like I said, we were able to get a few core brands on board, and then that allowed us to have sales. And I think also like making sure that you are able to articulate your story. I think as a founder, you're constantly living in the current, but then you're also living in the future that doesn't exist. And so you're trying to pitch for something that's not real yet. And I think that you've got to really narrow that story down and make sure that people are understanding. The amount of times that I would go on a 45-minute call with an investor and I'd be like, they're into it, like they got it, like they understand what I'm talking about. And then it would be like, we're saying goodbye, and the investor would be like, I'm gonna talk to my wife about like how she used Facebook Marketplace. And I'd be like, what? Like that's not at all what our business is. And then like the call would end and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I clearly wasn't clear. So like, you know, like you've gotta like take the feedback and iterate constantly.
Cool. And the final question?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
So you mentioned that you don't trust everybody anyone at a get-go, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you stay cautious of investors without losing good opportunities?
I think that you just have to it's not just about like you pitching them. Like it needs to get to a point where like they're so obsessed with what you're building that they're pitching you. And then from there, like you're doing just as much diligence. Like I would call when I would ask for references. Like of course I would they're gonna give you the people that love them. But like I would then reach out to other founders in their portfolio of maybe brands that have had a hiccup or the macroeconomic environment changed, and like how are those investors treating those companies during the bad times as well as the good times. So I think as a founder, you need to, just as much as people are diligencing you, like you need to be diligencing them as well.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Can I get a huge round of applause for Emily? Thank you. Jason, take it over.